Hello and welcome to HCS Connects. I'm Kelly Gorel with Hampton City Schools. Today we have Brittany Dortch with us, who is our Chief Financial Officer for Hampton City Schools, to discuss the ins and outs of the Hampton City Schools budget. So welcome to HCS Connects.
Thank you, Kelly. Nice to be here.
Well, we are very excited to have you as we are in the throes of budget season.
Yes.
And with that budget, you have to have a budget to operate a school division.
You do.
And there are many aspects to that budget that can be very confusing as it's very complicated. So we've got you here today to pretty much give us a Dummies 101 for budgets so that we can understand what is in your world right now. So let's just start with what is that process for the budget?
The budget process begins in early fall. So the finance department, we get together and we map out the budget development calendar.
So you're telling me early fall.
Early fall.
We're kicking off the school year. We're welcoming students back for this full year, and you're already starting planning for the next year.
Yep.
Okay.
August, September, we're starting planning for next year. So we meet with the division leadership team as well to also share with them how we plan to map out the process. One thing that was new this year, the finance department, we actually met with each individual department, and that gave us the opportunity to talk to them about what their goals are for next year, and then also allowed us to train them in our new financial system, Munis.
And let me stop there for a moment. When you said meet with each department, now when you talk a budget, there's an overall, obviously, budget for Hampton City Schools, but different individuals manage their own budgets depending on their school or the department. So we've got 32 schools and sites, so they each have their own budget that they oversee.
They do.
And then you have all of the internal departments, not just payroll and finance.
No.
You've got PR marketing.
Yes.
You've got transportation.
Operations and maintenance.
Right. So when you said you sat down and met with each of those departments
Yes.
to really talk through their budget to make sure that we're spending fiscally responsibly,
Yes.
and also what the needs are.
Yep.
Okay.
So through those meetings, we really gained a lot of great insight in, what's the story behind all of the numbers that we deal with. So in December, the governor releases his budget, and that provides us with some initial revenue projections so that we can start our process with the budget committee team. And that team includes the division leadership team and then select members from the finance department as well. So really, in those meetings, we're looking at all of the requests that have come through, whether it be payroll, new positions, or reclassifications, and then all of those department requests that we heard about earlier in the fall.
Needs for instruction.
Yes.
Potentially a new school bus, different things.
Yes, that is correct.
So you said the governor's budget, but again, like I said earlier, the budget's very complicated. So yes, the governor's the state, but we're not just funded by the state. So exactly how, because we don't generate our own revenue.
No, we do not.
So we're dependent on other entities for our budget. So exactly what are those entities?
So our budget revenues come from 5 main sources. So one being the state, of course, but then also our local government, the city of Hampton. So they fund us using a local funding formula. We also receive some federal funds, one being federal impact aid. And that funding really just helps to supplement, anytime you have military bases on land within the city.
Which we do.
Yes, which we do, especially here in Hampton. Yes, we do. We don't generate any revenue off that land. So the federal government tries to subsidize school divisions for that loss of revenue. And then we also have another bucket that we call our catch-all. Is this other miscellaneous funds. One example would be Medicaid reimbursement that's ran through our special education office.
And also grants.
And also grants, yes.
So grants would also be that kind of catch-all, because that's another, it's not guaranteed. We apply for those grants.
Yes.
And it's for award of the grants.
Yes, most of our grants come from the federal government. One that I know a lot of our school-based staff know about is Title I. That's like the big one.
Right.
Title II, school improvement type grants.
So we're receiving revenues from different sources to create that overall budget for the school division.
Yes.
But, and we said state and the governor, but we know more than a decade ago, we had the recession and state funds were cut drastically for the entire Commonwealth. Are we really back to where we were over a decade ago as far as the funding we're receiving from the state?
I wish I could say we were back, but we're not. But between the last 2 years, so in the current budget we're in now, and just based on the governor's proposal for next year, the state is making strides to get back there. So
Making
that's
education a
positive.
priority in their budget process. So what does that governor's budget look like right now?
So within the governor's proposed budget, there is a large investment in early childhood education.
Okay.
Additionally, for our basic aid, which that funds the standards of quality, we are right now projecting to receive quite a big increase, but that's based on our average daily membership, our enrollment going up.
How many students we have?
Yes.
Okay.
Then another major change within the governor's proposal, he's trying to phase in increasing the school counselor to pupil ratio.
Okay.
Eventually by 2022 getting to 250 students to one school counselor. So as part of that phased in approach, he's included funding in fiscal year 2021 and then ultimately additional funding in 2022.
So, and the reason you're talking 2021 and 2022 is because we work on a biennium, we work on a 2-year budget, correct? So
Yes.
next year, which is considered fiscal year 2021, which is next school year, which is the 2020 to 2021 school year. I mean, talk about numbers,
Yes.
just right there alone. That's just the first year of that biennium
That is
of
correct.
that governor's budget. So when you're talking about that phase in, it's that 2-year plan as far as increasing school counselors so that we have a smaller ratio of school counselors to students.
Yes.
Okay.
So the state, they do budget on a 2-year basis, a biennium, but we budget on an annual basis.
Correct.
But we have to always be prepared for what's coming next.
What's next?
Yes.
So we've got the increase in counselors as part of the governor's budget. You said more money towards early childhood education, so like pre-K.
Yes, the pre-K program.
Pre-K program. What would be another highlight of the governor's budget?
And then the other highlight is the compensation supplement.
So when we say compensation supplement, everybody looks at pay raises.
Yes, pay raises, yes. So within the governor's budget for fiscal year 2021, so next school year, currently he does not have any funds allocated for a pay raise.
Okay.
However, in fiscal year 2022,
2 years from now.
2 years from now, the governor included a 3% pay raise for standards of quality teachers and support staff.
What's a standard of quality teacher and support staff? Remember, this is Dummies 101 budget.
So standards of quality, or SOQ, that is the minimum education standards that the state government requires all school divisions to provide to students. So under the standards of quality, you have, your SOL, your standards of learning requirements, but you also have personnel requirements.
The minimal personnel
Minimum
requirements.
personnel requirements, yes.
Okay, so, and they fund us for those minimal personnel requirements. But of course, being in education, as long as we both have, and other people that understand education, you can't go by minimal.
No.
So they may fund you for, I'm making this up, this is not a real number, but it is a real number, but not a real fact. They could say, the government could say that, 10 teachers is the minimal to teach this many students. But we know that that's a very large class size.
Yes.
That small classroom instruction is better. So instead of 10, we might need 17.
Yes.
So then we're on our own just to compensate those other 7 teachers for their salary.
Yep, that is correct.
And then whenever the governor comes out and says, well, we'll give a 2% raise for the SOQ, they're only giving that 2% for the 10, because that's the minimum. Again, these are all just scenarios.
Yes.
But in order to be fair and equitable, we wouldn't just say, you're the 10. It's no, we have 17, so we need to come up with the money
For the 17.
for the 7 extra.
Yes.
Okay. Did I get that example right?
You got it.
I pass.
100.
That's a lot of numbers we just threw out. So what is the governor's proposal in 2 years from now?
So 2 years from now, the governor is proposing a 3% compensation increase or raise.
Okay, but that's not next year.
That is not next year.
Okay.
That will be starting July 1 of 2021.
Okay, so that's a lot
Yes.
of information we just went through, but there's still more. We have a budget that's still coming up.
Yes.
We may not be getting per the budget, but the governor's, that's a mouthful. The governor's proposed budget, we're not receiving a compensation raise for next school year.
Yes.
But we have budget priorities. The school board has budget priorities for next year. So what are those budget priorities?
So one of the top priorities of the school board is competitive compensation and teacher retention, and then also support staff as well. That is probably their number one.
So that's their number one, but we're not getting any extra money from the state. So what
Yes.
are we able to do as Hampton City Schools? What is in that proposed budget to meet that goal?
So because we are projected under the governor's budget to receive additional funding for basic aid, but then also other programs like at-risk funding and then lottery funded programs as well. You know, we look at our total budget and how we're funding items currently, and then we kind of have to do some maneuvering around to make sure that we could free up money elsewhere in order to provide, you know, some type of pay increase for our employees.
What is that going to look like for next year? What is the proposal?
So right now, based on the governor's budget, we are looking to propose a 2% compensation increase for all teachers and staff.
When you say all teachers and staff, that would be all employees, full-time and part-time, correct?
Yes, there are a few exceptions, but majority all.
So, you know, it's also the retention piece. You said it's compensation, it's also retention of staff.
Yes.
And I know when the recession did hit over a decade ago, we really had to kind of stop looking at even like the teacher scale and so forth. So I know that I believe the proposed budget also, we're working on that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so along with the 2% compensation increase, in addition to that, we are also looking to make a $1.4 million investment into our teacher salary scale.
And that'll kind of just look at the compression of if I'm a 14-year teacher opposed to a 15-year teacher, or a 18-year teacher that have taught for 18 years opposed to like a 22.
Yes.
That's where that 1.4 million is going to start kind of addressing the teacher scale.
Yes. So
And that's in addition to the 2%.
yes, that is in addition to the 2%. So how the $1.4 million investment into the teacher scale will be divided. For teachers that are on steps 1 through 14, they'll receive an additional $500 for the year.
So again, you take this year's salary, you add 2%, and then from that 2%, you add $500 or more dollars.
Yes.
Okay.
And then for teachers on steps 15 through 29, they will receive an additional $1,000.
So again, take their salary this year, add 2%, and then add an additional $1,000. So that's where it's a 2% for all full-time and part-time, and then that 1.4 million is to then look at our teacher scale.
Yes.
But I know there's some other compensation pieces that we've looked at as far as adjustments. What would those be?
Yes, so some other adjustments that we are proposing would include a $2 per hour increase for bus drivers and bus attendants. Additionally, $1.83 per hour increase for our food service cafeteria staff. $2 per hour increase for our food service managers.
And that's all in addition to the 2%.
That is all in addition to the 2%, yes.
So you've got cafeteria staff, we talked about bus drivers and bus attendants, secretaries.
Yes, so for secretaries, we're proposing an additional $1 per hour in addition to the 2%.
And that's not all of them.
That's not all of
That's
them.
just a highlight of some of them.
Yes.
But all of that information will be well presented in the budget presentation as well as on our website.
That is correct.
So that's just compensation.
Yes.
What about healthcare? That's
So-
always a big topic about healthcare because healthcare continues to rise every
does.
year and it's very expensive.
It is. It is. It is. So right now, based on our projections for next year, we're looking at a 5.3% increase in healthcare claims, and we are also going to recommend that we as a division absorb 100% of that increase so that for an employee, they will not see an increase in their contribution to their healthcare
That's
plans
huge.
for next year. Yes.
That really is huge because a lot of times you'll see that, and that's the second year then.
Yes.
Because we did that this past year,
Yeah,
the current year we're in.
Yep.
We absorbed all the healthcare costs, even though those went up.
Yep.
And we're proposing that again for next year. So that means that for 2 years in a row, those raises, those compensation raises are completely unencumbered.
Yep.
They are getting a full raise
Yep, full
because their healthcare will not go up. It's going up, but the school division's going to
Gonna
cover that.
it. Yes.
So obviously, one priority for the school division is compensation and retention. What's another school board priority?
we always start with the governor's budget. So with the changes in the standards of quality for school counselors, we are going to add additional school counselors to our buildings. But we're also going to look at adding additional social workers as well, school psychologists, just so that we make sure that, we're meeting that requirement, but then also make sure that we are meeting our initiatives and our priorities
and our students' needs.
And our students' needs.
But again, that's going above those SOQ positions, which are a minimal, and we know what the needs are of our students and our community, and we want to make sure that we're providing everything that, not what's expected per se, but what should be there for our young people. So that was a lot. And that was just the operating budget.
That is just the operating budget.
When you, again, complicated topic, but the operating budget is just a chunk. It's the large chunk, the largest chunk of the budget. But there are other pieces when you think of athletics, our food nutrition services, and other entities. We won't get into all that. I'm so excited that I got an A earlier and passed the test. So I want our viewers to also get an A and pass the test and not confuse them at all. But where will they be able to go to find more information about the budget process?
So the budget was presented last night at the school board meeting, but we'll also be holding public hearings each Wednesday throughout the month of March. Viewers can also go to our website, the Hampton City Schools website. We have budget information that will include a frequently asked questionnaire, so that will provide you some more details about what makes up this
Try to break it down a little bit instead of following the presentation and trying to understand exactly what that means. They'll have access to the presentation, of course, because that's videotaped.
Yes.
And then they'll have access to this conversation, which they can always go back to. But the FAQs on the website will really help just kind of break it down for those frequently asked questions.
Yes. And for those out there who love to read, we'll have a budget proposal book that will be available for the public to view as well.
So lots of information that's available in case anyone does have those extra questions. Well, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Kelly.
There were a lot of numbers thrown out. Hopefully, as our viewers are watching, they're understanding that process. And if at any point there's any questions, they know that they can reach out to Hampton City Schools and even my department, and we can assist. So, well, thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on HCS Connects. In the meantime, stay connected with us. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Jump over to our website or our YouTube channel. Thanks and have a great day.